jet is taking off.
We have liftoff.
Well, the Winnipeg Arena is all right.
It's a special night for Winnipeg, a special night for this entire province as the puck is dropped.
For Buffalo, cross ice for Riley, scores!
Mark Shoutley gives the Jets the lead.
Take it to the Jets game today.
It clearly will be one of the best places to come and watch a National Hockey League game.
The Winnipeg Jets are proud to select from the USHL Youngstown, Kyle Connor.
Jets Fantasy Fuel Podcast, Episode 6. We're going to be talking top 11 lines for the year. We're going to give you an outlook on who you should pick in fantasy, injury, relevant. We're going to show you what's good for the year. Before we get into anything, a little news there. Gabriel Bourque got signed for a $700,000 contract.
Good deal.
Yeah, I guess not. Like, I'd rather just not sign him if it was up to me. I'd rather give some of the rookies a chance to play. He's a very reliable player. Coaches like him. He does exactly what you need, but nothing more. He has zero upside. And I think if we're coming into a time where we're signing Gabriel Bourque, it's not looking good. He was the last string in Colorado last year to the point where fans were getting mad because rookies weren't getting ice time because they were playing this guy. But at the end of the day, Coach Benner was like, "Hey, yeah, I trust him. He does all the systems right. He blocks shots. He does everything that I ask him to." He got 2 goals last year. One was an open net. Empty net at the end of the game. There's not much to say about the dude other than the fact that I think every Jets fan will be like, "Oh yeah, he does his job," and then they'll see him make a brain fart. They'll see him not do something. They'll see him. He's horrible. He's a horrible pickup. If we picked him up, it's just not a good sign of where the team's going, especially with our starting lineup. Yeah, he might put up some big numbers in the HL because coaches trust him. But at the end of the day, he has no ceiling. He's old. He's a horrible pickup. As a team that might not be good this year, we got to start giving the rookies some ice time, some opportunity. So picking up a player like this, I don't know how I feel about it. I think you can tell by what I've said so far. And who's that over there? We've got a guest speaker today, Shelly, on the air. What can you...
Good evening, Blair. Hi, fans of hockey. I'm a hockey addict. That's what I am. I'm a poet, but I'm a hockey addict.
What gives you credibility? Why
right,
are you
the
on
hockey
this?
addiction. I was invited here because back in February, when everybody else figured they understood how the Jets were going to hoist the cup, I was saying St. Louis would win the cup, and they laughed at me. They were in last place, but then I saw Binnington play, and I was reminded of Kenny Dryden when the Montreal Canadiens stole Boston's second Stanley Cup away from them, and I had that same feeling when I saw Binnington.
Man, you've called a lot of shots in the last couple of years with our drafts. You've been in my draft for a while now. Both of my dad and my girlfriend's dad won the draft this year. My dad had Boston and St. Louis players, nice. And Celine's dad had all Boston players. So they won first and second. But you were the only other player in the league that chose St. Louis. And that's not why you're here today. It's all the other picks you've done. You've been around hockey. You still play. You're ancient, but you still play. You know everything about the Jets. You grew up here. Tell us a bit about yourself. Why,
I must tell you, it was a very, very eye-opening experience to be able to look in the dressing room and refer to 40-year-old men as the kids on my hockey team. That was when I knew that maybe I wasn't as young as I thought I was anymore.
No. You got that, when you invite me out to your league there. It's a good league. It's the best ice time I've seen in Winnipeg. Most of the times, if you're playing at Highlander, Dakota, Iceplex, you're paying $20+ for 12-minute periods, which you might play 4 of. You're playing 12 minutes a game for at least $20. It's not the best deal. Like, hockey ice in the city is pretty expensive. A lot of my buddies from, out in Brandon or just outside there, it's a lot cheaper, and you play the whole game. And what I get out of your hockey is an hour and a half of a bunch of old people that need to take ice time. They get off after half hour of playing. Like, I get to play pretty much the whole time.
Yep.
And it's $5 and you get 2 beers. Marion Hotel, a little shout out, they sponsor it, and I don't know how they make money other than the fact that all you people go there after. I work at 4 every day on Wednesday, so I'd shoot right to work, but it's I don't know how they make money. But it's the best ice time. How would you go wrong? Hour and a half, $5.
Well, it's much like the Notre Dame Hockey League. Hello, Spirit Leaguers. It's more about the church of hockey, the love of hockey, the belief in hockey. As I have said many times, life is hockey. Hockey is life. And if it isn't, well, it should be.
Man, you're not paying Marion's hotel bills. They're the ones paying for this.
Well,
There's no way you guys drink that much after. But.
Well, I don't know how the whole economic model shakes down. I do know that they appreciate some of the old school things that I believe in. Some of the things maybe I don't concur with all the time. Things have to change, and that's where it's good to have young people coming in. And,
Like hockey-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Okay.
and in the business model, too. We can learn from the youth, is what I'm saying, and I'm always happy to be around them.
Well, it's a youth movement, for sure. We can see all the best players out there are younger.
Yeah.
There's some old guys, some badass old people that play with us, though. Like, I forget what number was that defense. He was left-handed. He stopped every play, but you could tell 20 years ago he'd be the best player on the ice.
Oh, Andy. Yeah. the little general. Yeah.
He just tried pretty hard.
Well, some of us are still believing in the dream, I guess. Hockey is more than just a game for some of us.
I take that back. I hate the try hard term. If you're going to play, go play hard. Go play hard or go home. There's nothing in the middle. People get called out because they're trying hard. They're just playing hard. They're not trying hard. They're playing hard. That's how we're brought up. You go out to play, you give it your all or you don't. Whatever. Because everyone's 8 beers in the bag doesn't mean you can't try, right? So.
Well, we all know how the game is supposed to be played, and when we have choices, it's always good to try and do the things that we are told will work. If we keep doing the same things that don't work over and over again and expect a different result, well, we know what we call that, eh?
Well, it looks like Shelly needs a new coach here. Let's jump into our lineups here. We're going to go off of my list, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
You got your list there. Top 11 lines for the season. Fantasy relevant. If you want to win your draft this year, it's just kind of like, you're going to pick your players that you really like, your gut instinct, but just keep us in the back of the mind, because after the season's done and you listen to this episode again and you're seeing all these players blow up, you could have won some money. So maybe it's about the money or the moral concept of keeping your players that you love. As a Jets fan, it's gonna be hard to not keep some of those players this year, but you're gonna have to kiss some of them goodbye. But we'll get into this here.
Well, for those of you out in the studio audience, this is code for something that he and I happen to concur on. There's something nice about the thin air in parts of the U.S. Northwest.
Oh, you're setting me up for my first line here. Well, you're right. Playing in Colorado is horrendous. You're playing at that altitude. You're flying in the day before. You're practicing. You're out of air before the practice is over. How do you play these people? Especially since Colorado might get first place, second place. They're going to get home ice advantage. It's going to be a scary playoff. And that is why, that's not why, but they're my first pick. You got Landeskog, McKinnon, and Rantanen. They had 261 points last year. I have McKinnon. He only had 99 points last year. I have him for 110. Rantanen he missed about 8 games for injury. He only had 87 points, so I have him up in the 95 range. So that's 20 points right there. Landeskog, reaching, he had 75, points, but he only had 73 games. I don't see him beating that even with 82 points. So it's more of a McKinnon, Rantanen getting 10 more points each. The players they're surrounded with too. You got Kadri on the power play there.
I like him a lot.
Makar coming up, one of the better, second best playoff numbers for a defense coming into the playoffs. 6 points in 10 games. He looked like he fit right in there. I think he's going to do great this year. Trading Barry, I don't think will hurt them as much. That's why I have them for 20 more points at least this year. 284 points. Let's call it now. You heard it here on Jets Fantasy Fuel. That's why I have them as my first line.
Big number.
A lot of people compare McDavid as the second best player. We'll talk about that in a few podcasts as our top 11 centers. But he doesn't have the surrounding cast. He doesn't have the defense. He has to do it all of himself. He's got Rantanen and Landeskog on the line. Landeskog's really good in front of the net. He showed he put up numbers close to Pavelski about being in front of the net, tip shots. Maybe it's luck. I don't think it's luck. Watching him, the year that Edmonton chose, what's his face, over Landeskog, it was like, how do you even compare?
Oh, I love Landeskog. I always have since he came into the league. A lot of the Swedish players, you can see that they're developed in the model of the the Canadian Métis Viking style. Call out to all the Swedish hockey lovers out there.
Even the I don't know if anyone watched the All-Star game. He was lighting it up out there, and
he was embarrassed. He was so good.
It was ridiculous watching Wheeler pass everything. He just, like, he's one of the best passers in the game. He's got 70 assists the last couple of years. He wasn't even trying to shoot. He had so many shots he could have taken, and he just kept making the pass. And it kind of, whatever. I kind of got mad about it, but like at the end of the day, whatever. Like, you're passing with all these players, like watching Sagan out with them. Anyways, long story short, I had them at my number 1. The Colorado line. Where did you have them?
I had them at my number 2, but I have to tell you, the more you're talking about Rantanen, I remember when I first saw him turn it up a notch, he reminded me of Jaromir Jagr and Frolik, the two of them, all in one. He was a powerful guy with beautiful hands, kept people away from the puck, and when they played in the cycle game, it was a pretty thing to watch.
Yeah, he one of the better backhands on the power play. If you got Makar, he can either pass to McKinnon or Rantanen. McKinnon doesn't have the best one-timer, but it's good enough where he's even, when the one-timer wasn't working last year, he'd stop the puck and diddle around there and just wrist shot it. But if the pass isn't there, you got Rantanen, or you go for a tip shot with Landeskog. So the power play production, the 5-on-5 is mainly where this number's coming from. But you add that power play on top of that, it's a scary line. 284 points, 261 last year. I think they got more upside this year. And for our number 2, I have my number 2 as your number 1. I'm going to go, just so we don't get confused as comparing.
Now, when he says number 2, that might be an offense to some of you Boston fans. He's not doing any kind of a metaphor or anything.
Well,
I had number 2 as number 1.
My dad's going to be pissed, but I have Boston at 2. Marchand, Bergeron, and Pastrnak.
I have him at 1.
You do.
Yeah.
260
and
points last year.
It's a tough call because I dislike the sewer rat, the way he plays the game, yet I know I'd love to have him on my team. I don't like the way he disrespects hockey, but I love the way he supports his teammates. He's a contradiction in every way that is possible, but he knows how to play, he knows how to win, and the numbers don't lie. He does have his
100
name on
points
the cup.
last year.
Yeah. I have him up. I have them. They could be neck and neck with Colorado, because the more I talk about that Rantanen, the more I think it might be like watching Jagr the year he broke out with Mario Lemieux. Kind of what I'm hoping for with Laine, but that's a discussion for a different time.
Well, Bergeron only had 65 games last year. Pastrnak had 66. They both got 79 and 81 points respectively, and still had 260 points as a total as a line. If you get both those players playing at least 10 more games, I don't see it with Bergeron. I think he's good for a 65, 70, game season. I have Pastrnak for a full healthy season this year. So if he gets up to that point, I think he's going to contest with Colorado.
Pastrnak will get better because he'll be called out, because there's a lot of people that were unhappy with his lack of jam in the playoffs, much like some of us Winnipeg fans were with our captain. Mm-hmm. But he will answer the bell. We'll
get into that as well. But as a 260-point line last year, you got Pastrnak having at least 10 more. That's 270. If Bergeron can stay healthy, that's at least 280 points. I have Colorado above because the injury concern. It's not about who's better. I just more so, if I'm drafting, if I'm paying money into a draft, it's like, who am I going to pick? I don't know. Colorado.
It's at this point I have to tell you, Bergeron and I'm starting to sound like grapes. What's his name? The captain in Philly, Briere. Those two players are the most underrated two-way forwards that I've ever seen. We don't get to see a lot of them in the West here, in the central part of North America. But I would sure like to see more of them, because they're really solid two-way players. And when you have a French name on the back of your sweater, like Perreault does, it's a real hard thing to get that respect. But I'd have either one of them on my team.
Oh, yeah. But, I guess, what was your favorite thing about Boston last year? Watching their games, everything I've seen on the
way they protected Tuukka Rask, the way they protected their goalies, it's the most important part of winning a cup that I hope our team figures out. You can't win the cup without protecting your goalie, unless he's Billy Smith, in which case he can protect himself.
Well, cheers to that, man. Yeah. I'd say my favorite thing would definitely be how Bergeron got into those sweet spots. It's the first time, we seen a bit of it last year where, they dabbled, they had really good chemistry. But this is the first year where I seen the pass go to Marchand, Pastrnak, and when it went back to Bergeron in the center there, he wasn't in the middle. He was right off just to the right of the side. And no one was in that spot. Every time he got a pass there, it's like everyone's like, oh no, he's not shooting it from there. He would just one-time it from there. And getting in those
him to.
sweet spots
Nice.
is so scary to the
That's
point
what
where
Laine can do that too, by the way.
oh yeah. Laine having a bad season at 30 goals isn't that bad. We'll get into that.
Cool.
But
It's the Winnipeg thing.
I guess we should be talking about Winnipeg as a Winnipeg podcast.
Well, it's out of respect for your dad and your wife's dad. And when I was a kid, a little boy, I had Orr on ice. Everybody loved Bobby Orr and Phil Esposito. That place where Bergeron stands is about 1.5 feet, 2 feet back, and about 2 feet over from where Phil Esposito made his living. And it's a beautiful
right
place.
There. That was a juicy spot this year. To the point where no one could even get there before he got the shot.
Well, it puts the defenseman in no man's land. You're either screening your goalie, hello Bufflin, Trouba, or you're out there blocking the shot.
We don't have to worry about Trouba anymore.
Ooh, that's harsh.
I know.
I like Junior.
I'm just kidding. I like the guy. He's gonna have a good year. He's gonna have
He's gonna
60.
have fun
He's
in
gonna
New
have
York.
60 points.
Who
this
doesn't
year.
have fun in New York? Hello, Trouba and Lemieux. You're welcome. You got to play here. You escaped.
Yeah. He's gonna have at least 60 points. He had 50 this year. He's gonna be on, and that was with sharing time with Myers and Bufflin. Like he's gonna be on the first power play unit. He's gonna have at least 60 points next year. That's gonna.
I hope he does. I like.
Yeah,
Jacob.
I like him. I
Jacob.
wish him all the best. You know, at the end of the day,
He was one of my faves. He was a Viking.
we just couldn't afford him for $8 million with all the other players. So
That's true,
it's
especially when you're overpaying. Did I say that out loud? Certain defensemen who were from Minnesota for not playing defense. Hello, Tyler Myers, captain of the Canucks this year, I hope.
You're calling that out now. Eh?
Yep.
All right. Well, before we get into more random stats for the year, we're going to bring this first segment to an end. We'll be right back here. Cheers. Jets Fantasy Fuel Podcast, segment 2 here. We're going to be talking top 11 first lines for this year. I have Tampa Bay at my third. It was a close comparison between them and Florida. Tampa Bay had 267 points with Kucherov, Point, and Johnson line. I have them about the same. I think Kucherov will get about 10 less. Point will probably get about 10 more. They're going to be in the same range. And it's going to be just under the Colorado-Boston line. But they're going to be up there. And before we get into the Florida line, I know you had them a bit later in your list there. And maybe a couple of reasons why you had them.
Oh, right. Well, Tampa Bay, I love the way that Stevie is building his team, but I'm convinced that this Point thing isn't going to work out because I'm convinced there's collusion going on between the
So just
agents
signing
and the
wise.
owners. So he's not going to get the points because he's not going to play. He's going to sit out. That's
Like
how
a
I
whole
see
year
it.
or just to December?
Well, long enough that it's going to affect the whole outcome, much like a lot of these pools. Look, they should have asterisks in the history so you can look back and say, oh yeah, well that's the time he got suspended for substance abuse, or oh that's the time he wasn't able to sign a contract.
What do you think he'll sign for?
It's not what he'll sign for, it's for how long. That's the issue. Right now I think the union is
They're
trying to be
looking
broken.
at 3 years, right?
Who knows? I'm not there in the room with these people. I do know that if you're running a team, nobody wants to sign anybody for longer than 3 or 4 years because they don't know what's going to happen before the unlegislated lockout that may or may not happen during the playoff run this year. Yeah, you heard it here first.
Yeah, true that, but they just literally can't afford it with Hedman, Stamkos, Kucherov on these long contracts. They're pretty really realistic numbers, but
If they were in a hockey market, they could, but it's Florida. Much like your other Florida pick, they got all these beautiful players and nobody cares. They don't go to the games, they don't sell out, they don't live, eat, breathe hockey the way we do now. How many Floridians are doing a podcast about hockey right now? 0. But here we are. We play hockey all summer when it's 38 degrees. We got people from Nigeria, Somalia watching us, shaking their heads. They can't believe that we're in a cold environment in the middle of summer playing a game that we can play the other 7 months of the year outside, but that's because we love the game so hard. Right. So when we tell you stuff, it's because we love it hard.
True that, man. I play outside pretty much every night.
Yeah, I know it.
Husky loves it there, for sure. Pretty much the same. Tampa Bay, Florida, 267 points last year. I have them about the same. Kucherov getting 10 less, Point getting 10 more. Point's a great player, 41 goals last year. I got him about 50 this year. He was their best player on the power play. That line's not going anywhere. Let's be realistic. And you didn't have the Florida line on your list. And I'm not surprised. I'm just in the same boat as I have been the last 5, more so 4 draft years, where I've picked Barkov and Huberdeau on my fantasy. It hasn't worked out only because Huberdeau has had a bunch of freak accidents at the start of last year, broke his leg, or the year before that, and they're just so good that to the point where they got the chemistry. I'm not saying much for Dadonov as their winger. I'm talking Barkov, Huberdeau as holding that line. It's 258 points last year. I have them for about 10 more this year. I think Barkov and Huberdeau, if they play full years, will get at least 5 more points. They played full seasons last year, and I don't see them getting injured anytime soon. They're not going to have to work as hard this year. Barkov, if you get a face-off in his end, he's going to win the face-off, bring it up, score a goal. A lot of these top lines, you take face-offs in the other end, you may or may not win that draw, you get possession, and you get a point. But Barkov is bringing it from the back end. He's one of the best centers in the league. He's a two-way player. He can play everywhere. He plays a power play, penalty kill. If you're looking for points this year, you're drafting players. Draft Barkov. He's getting everything. He's getting 5-on-5. He's getting power play, penalty kill time. He's going to be all over the ice.
You heard it from the Canadian kid. He's telling you to pick the Russian when in doubt.
I hope. I
have to
Fantasy,
agree. Barkov is a good Russian player. He's got all the characteristics of a Canadian who played in the Western Hockey League. I can't disagree with the pick. I just don't like the fact that there's a team in Florida and there isn't one in Quebec City or Hamilton or halfway between Regina and Saskatoon. Whatever. We love hockey and they don't appreciate how lucky they are to have it. Tampa Bay and Florida are both good teams. They have good players, great players, but if you can't get the puck out of your own zone, hello Florida, you're not getting many points for your forwards. Although Barkov is the exception. He can carry a team on his shoulders and can't argue with it.
He even scores penalty shots. Like, he's one of the best breakaway players I've seen. That draft year, he went second to McKinnon. Like, he's a good player.
Yep.
Like, he's right up there. Huberdeau's got that slickness. He's great. I think having Bobrovsky on the back end will let the D pinch a little more.
Good point.
They're not going to be all, we have to play back. Ekblad won't be like, oh, holy shit, I got to come back. Like, he's going to pinch up a bit. We got Bobrovsky. He's going to bail me out. So I think pinching up the team they have this year, I think it's the first year. Everyone will see why I've been taking these guys from my fantasy for the last 4 years. They're amazing. Watching them play together is ridiculous. I don't care who's on that wing. Dadonov works, whatever. You got Huberdeau. He plays the same wing as Huberdeau, but if he can go on the other side, it's going to be a pretty scary line. And I don't care what anyone says. Them and Tampa, they're going to have about the same amount of points, 266, 267, whatever you want to call it. They're the third and fourth line players. Our lines this year. You didn't have them on your list there, Shelly.
Well, I had Tampa Bay number 6, but I have Dallas and Calgary up around the areas where he has Florida and Tampa Bay. That's because I've seen them play. Like I said, only bet on people that you've seen actually play the game. Otherwise, you're just guessing. Yeah, or listen to Blair and myself, and we'll help you out because we love the game hard and we watch it.
Yeah.
But I like the Johnny Gaudreau line. I like it for about 260 points.
Okay, well...
And Dallas. Let me talk about Dallas.
Let's
Jamie
get back to
Benn.
Calgary.
What about Jamie Benn?
Let's get back to Calgary. I didn't have them on my list this year, only because I don't think Giordano is going to get 74 points this year. He's 35 years old. He's getting up there.
He's one of those kids in my old-timer league. 35.
You're talking about 40 minus. Same thing. I don't think he's going to have the same year this year, and only because he got every balance last year. He was putting in the effort. Whatever that is. He had a good year. He was Norris candidate. Did he not win the Norris?
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
past season, yes.
Yeah, so he had a really
Rightfully
good year.
so. Should have won it 2 other times.
For sure. But I don't see him getting there again. That line you're talking about, I think Gaudreau has the same amount of points. I think Lindholm doesn't.
Monahan and Lindholm are going to light it up next year. Oh.
Monahan, I don't disagree, but I think Lindholm had a background on that line. He wouldn't have done as well and hasn't on other teams. He had a surrounding cast. I think if you put anyone in that position, I have Tkachuk moving up to that line this year.
That's a good call, actually. That's
the only reason I don't have that line. I think Tkachuk has the grittiness. He can protect Gaudreau. He can play with Moynihan. He can play with anyone. And I think he is a little better than Lindholm and what he has to bring to the table. He's younger. He's faster. If you can get those 3 guys going with their age.
You still don't see them in the top 5, though, eh?
don't even have them in my top 11 only because
so Calgary
Lindholm-
is his Florida trade. So he's trading Florida for Calgary.
I am.
All you Canadians, I hope you remember this.
It sounds so bad, like as a Canadian, but it's more so of my love for Barkov and Huberdeau and watching them. I don't think their 266 points this year compares to, even if you have an upside on Calgary, it's going to be, what did they get last year? It's around 250. They're 260. They're going to get about the same, but like I don't have them beating that Florida line or the Tampa line. It's just, even if all else fails.
Well, the difference with Calgary, though, is with Giordano, even if he doesn't win the Norris Trophy, which is given to the defenseman who often has the most points, way more often than it should be, because a defenseman isn't just about scoring, it's about getting the puck out of our zone. But Calgary will be able to get the puck out of the zone. Florida, I'm not so sure about. You can't score if you can't get the puck out of your zone. Or as they say up on the North McPhillips, get the puck out of the zone.
Okay, great. So if we're talking about getting the puck out of the zone, I'm talking about just faceoffs. Barkov,
He's a winner, no doubt.
he can win the faceoff. Doesn't matter where it's on the ice. If it's in your end, okay, Barkov wins the faceoff. It's, you have possession. It's not like they're losing these possessions. It's more of a combination of Barkov being this amazing player, and that's why I have him up so high. He's going to be quite the player to watch. I have him in my top 3 centers. You should definitely draft him. Let's keep an eye out for him. Number 5, moving on. I got Winnipeg. 241 points with Scheifele, Wheeler, and Connor last year. And I have them about 255 points this year. That's 15 more points. Only because Wheeler might get 10 less. Scheifele, probably 10 more. I have him in the 90 range. He only had about, 80, 82, right around there. He's a point per game player last year, but I have him for about 90, breaking 90. It's the Connor aspect. Only 66 points last year. I have him breaking the 70, at least 80, 90 range. He's going to get up there. That's an extra 15 points, 255 goal, points there. They don't have as many back-end players, but the players in defense they have back there are puck-moving defense. So I'm not talking about when the puck is in their end. I'm not talking about plus-minus. I'm just talking pure points here. And if Pionk, Niku, all these young players are known what they are for, and it's moving the puck out. They're puck-moving defensemen. So if you can get the puck out and do everything they can on the power play, I have them for at least 14, 15 more points. I might be biased because I'm from Winnipeg, but Scheifele, 82 points, 88, like he is going to get at least 90 points. He is a huge player. He is young. He's way younger than Wheeler. I think he's fast. He has that good connection with Wheeler, but Connor uprising, it doesn't compare. 66 points for Connor. The year he had last year, the posts he got, he should have had at least 70. He's going to have at least 90 points. That's 20 points.
I can't argue with the praising of Connor in particular. I happen to have Washington in at the position you may have Winnipeg, but I do have Winnipeg in the top 21. I actually thought this was a top 21 list, not top 11.
So if I have Winnipeg for 255 points, how many points do you have for Washington?
Well, we have a disagreement, first of all, about the Winnipeg number 1 line, because you're talking about Scheifele, Wheeler, and Connor.
Yeah.
And I've got Scheifele playing with Line and Ehlers. Hello, coach. Are you listening? They lit the league up for the first 20 games they played, and then you broke it up, just like Anders, Alfie, and Bobby. When they tore it up in the WHA, we know it works. Why do you think they get upset when they're not put on the number 1 line? They see Wheeler, line 2, Little, line 2. Connor, he might get 100 points playing on that line. It's line 1A and line 1B. But I have Scheifele with Ehlers and line A, and I would put him in the top 11. But I've got Washington there based on last year. Oh, by the way, Washington won a Stanley Cup.
How many points do you have for them this year?
For Washington?
How many did they get last year?
203.
How many do you have them for this year?
I would put them around 225.
So if I have Winnipeg for 255, we got to make up for 30 points there. Like, where are they coming
Winnipeg's
from?
they're not going to get that many points.
They had 241 last year with that line.
But it's not going to be the same line.
So how many points do you have Wheeler for? If he had 91 points last
Wheeler
year.
will get maybe 70.
Okay, so that's 20 less. How many do you have for Scheifele? He had 80.
Scheifele is a challenge. He could actually get 10 more. But since Connor will be playing on the second line, it's going to be line 8 Ehlers and Scheifele.
So you don't agree with the line placement?
No, not at all.
Is it to more activate Liney as a scorer, getting passes for Ehlers?
No, it's
I mean,
more
there's
to
the
it's
speed.
more to open up the entire line to the possibilities. Ehlers is frustrated because he can't find somebody smart enough to play with him. The only one is Scheifele. Line is frustrated because nobody understands that the puck has to be exactly where he wants it, and it'll be in the net.
And you think Ehlers can give that to him?
Ehlers is for sure the one.
Absolutely. The speed makes up for
He makes
Liney's
passes
speed.
that even Paul Correa and Gretzky couldn't make.
But you're not far off of what he brings to the table, though. You watch Ehlers. He's so fast to the point where if he goes around, skates down the other end, he can literally skate around the net and set Liney up. So you're not far off of what you're saying of Ehlers and Liney playing together. Absolutely.
But
Wheeler dropping to the second line,
Yeah.
I like that only because his age. Is Wheeler young enough, or does he have enough oomph in him to play on the first line? I don't know. I only had him with Scheifele because their chemistry. I'm not talking more so the whole year. Like, yeah, maybe he dies out and he gets tired and he starts declining and he moves to the second line. But I just feel like their connection with Wheeler and Scheifele, they would stay together, and then basically you place the other person. I don't care who it is.
Have you ever heard about the captain of the Titanic? Hello, Paul Maurice. You could go down with the ship, but if the ship sinks, you don't win anything.
But come again, like I'm not
Wheeler
saying
is
you're-
not a number one power play player for one.
So what would the second line look like if you had Scheifele, Ehlers, and Liney on the first line? I want to know what your second line looks
Line
like.
1B, 1A and 1B would be Little at center, possibly Roslovic, depending on how the year works out, and Wheeler and Connor on the other side. Connor's the glue that holds the whole thing together because him
That's
and Wheeler
four
can play.
players there, dude.
No, I got Roslovic at center, not Little.
Okay, good. We're gonna not talk about Little because I have him for the fourth line, or Letestu taking his spot and him going down
Wow,
to
that's
the
harsh.
AHL. Someone
You know
can
what?
pick him up on waivers. I don't care.
Brian Little
But
actually
let's-
proved me wrong this past season, so give us some
Wheeler
credibility
Connor.
to him.
though as a wings supporting Roslovic.
Yeah, I like that. Line 2, line 1A, 1B, whatever.
I like it, but the only thing I don't like is we tested Roslovic at center last year, and my problem was he seemed a bit out of position. He grew up playing center. He's a good center in the AHL, but like when he transitioned there, he didn't have the defense game I thought he could
He'll
have.
learn from Scheifele. Scheifele will set the bar for him.
But if they're on the same line, it doesn't.
Roslovic can't be on the same line with Scheifele.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a good idea.
well, they're both centers. But on the power play, if you had Roslovic passing to Liney, it's a good move.
It's a good fit. Yep.
But I have him as my fifth. Obviously, we have a different lineup combination, and you might be right. First couple, 20 games last year, they were smooth sailing, and I don't think Wheeler can keep up with the whole 82 game season. But if he can, that line is going to be deadly. It's going to be 255, 260 points, whatever it is. It's going to be the fifth best line in hockey. If they decline a bit, they're going to be in the 240, 230 range. You're still okay to draft them. Even if Winnipeg has a bad year, they're going to do huge this year. It doesn't matter who is on that first line. They're going to be huge, and I think you're safe to draft them there. Number 6 there. I have Dallas, and you had them at 3, right?
Yes.
I only had them at where I have them only because the surrounding cast. You got Radulov. He's a 70 game kind of player. He doesn't really play more than that. He gets some injuries. He'll get a point per game. He had 72 points in 70 games last year. The concern is more so Pavelski. I hope he gets moved up on that first line. I know he plays the same position as Ben. Ben had 53 points in 78 games last year. I have him up in the 80 range this year. He got at least 69 points in the last 5 years before that. He only had 53 last year. I think it was a bit of a down year, but him playing with Sagan the whole year on that first line, Pavelski coming in moves him up in that top 6. And Radulov, even if they keep him on the other side, Sagan had 80 points in 82 games. They had 205 points last year. I have him about 240 points. 240, give or take.
Yeah. I agree with that. I concur with the number, I guess, but I think it might be...
Sagan will get at least 10 more points. He'll be in the 90-point range.
It's who they play with the other two. It could be Radulov or might be.
Even if it's Pavelski or Radulov, Pavelski only had like in the 60 range, but Radulov, he's a pesky mofo. Like, he's right in front of the net. He's digging pucks. If Sagan and Ben, Sagan, if he's not scoring, Ben's in front of the net. If he misses it, it goes right to Radulov. I don't know where Pavelski would fit in that line. If Sagan's shooting, if I'm on his team, I wouldn't want my best players in front of the net. If Sagan's shooting, you don't want Pavelski in front of the net. Like, let's get real. Like,
yeah,
he's gonna get injured. Ben's good for the corners, whatever, Radulov too, but I think Pavelski, like, having Sagan on the line would be like having McKinnon or McDavid.
I'd make Ben the center and have Pavelski and Sagan on the wings on that. I really do like that. I like Dallas quite a bit. Ben...
Sagan, okay. So on his strong side, shooting from there. Okay. I like that.
I think they can still be...
Do you think Ben has the endurance for a center?
I don't think there's any doubt. I've been impressed by what I've been seeing from Jamie Benn. He makes me proud to be a Canadian. Seriously. Dallas scares me next year.
Is it 6 or 7?
Dallas could be a Final Four team with Colorado next year. I'm telling you.
Oh, there's no doubt.
They scare me.
There's no doubt. Heiskanen coming up. Klingberg maybe taking a step back with Heiskanen coming in that first power play. Like, they've
built a really, really tough team.
My my sleeper pick this year was Hintz.
Oh, nice.
And I got chirped by everyone. Everyone's like, "Oh, who's Rope Hintz there?" And he did well for me in the playoffs. And it wasn't because I was just like, "Oh, who should I pick as my random sleeper?" I did. And near the end of the year, he was winning faceoffs. He was playing D. He was playing hard. He's from that 2015 draft. Nuts. It's crazy. Everyone from that draft seems to be the best players in the NHL right now. Seems like every 5 years there's that good draft. And he's from there. And there's no coincidence of why I picked him. And I got chirped for it, but it worked out. Everyone's like, "Oh, who's Rope Hintz?" And they're like, "Dude, I can't believe you picked that guy." It's like, "Yeah, man, I picked him over Ben." Like, Radulov. I picked him, Sagan, and Zuccarello as my 3 Dallas players.
You can't argue with it. Having Zuccarello on that line, it's just scary.
Oh, he was on the second line with Hintz.
But think of the power play, though. Having Zuccarello, Ben, and Sagan, and whoever else you want to put on the point.
It's nuts.
It's scary, and they can rifle the puck.
But having that that matchup though, like Hintz against your second line, like no one even knows who this kid is. He's got no respect yet, so he just walks around players because no one knows what he can do yet. It's pretty funny to watch. But let's get one more.
Well, I still had Washington at number 5.
You did? All right, we'll compare them later.
Yeah, okay.
Where did you have Pittsburgh? That's my number 7 team.
I've got them at 7 as well.
All right.
Gunsel, I love. I've always loved him, and I love Crosby. He's Mr. Hockey. I like Rusk or whatever his name is. Rusk never sleeps.
Rust. Pretty sure it's Rust. But he played with Melkin a lot last year. I don't have him on their line.
You don't, eh?
I have McCann.
Well, maybe.
From Florida.
Yeah, maybe.
32 games, 11 goals, 6 assists. He stood up with Crosby at over a 15% shooting percentage. When you get into the over 15%, you are, I don't care if
you're elite company there.
You are, and it's more of a Crosby Gensel kind of thing. You got Kessel leaving to Arizona, and Gensel was on the second power play last year. He's going to move up to the first this year. He's going to play with Crosby all year. Crosby had 100 points. Gensel had about 92. I don't care what McCann gets. He only had about 32, 35 points last year. Him and Rust are very similar players where they're about every other game they get a point, but coming over with McCann from that Florida trade, him and Crosby, I'm not saying they found chemistry. I don't want to give McCann more credit than he deserves because it's obviously Crosby. You're playing with Crosby, you're going to do good. And he did right away. He fit into his element, and I think them with a full line together could do some damage this year. 211 points last year. I have them for 235 points this year. Wow. Only because Crosby hasn't had less than 84 points in the last 6 years. Gensel, he had 76 points last year. I have him in the 90 range. He's my sleeper pick for playoffs 3 years ago. I got chirped the same way as I did Rope Hintz. Who's Gensel? Oh, who is this guy? He's the guy.
First guy on the puck quite often. Yep. First guy on the puck.
Good backhands. good winger. You're not going to put Malkin with Crosby because you need him for your second line center. So who can step up? Gensel. He's going to be in that spot. I got McCann there too. 235 points easily this year. And I hate being, a Crosby fan, but he's Canadian. He trains with McKinnon all summer in Newfoundland there, wherever they Halifax there. Whereabouts do they train there?
Oh, Black Hole, Nova Scotia?
Yeah, I seen some of their videos. It was just ridiculous the way they train. But staying away from the ladies,
Cole Harbor.
obviously.
Black Cole. Cole Harbor.
I haven't seen him have a girlfriend yet. He means he's focusing on the hockey, right? So good for him. But that line's going to be ridiculous this year. I don't see anyone touching.
This is where Shelly the poet doesn't do the Stefan Richer Don Cherry thing. That's funny.
Where'd you have him?
I have Pittsburgh at 7.
So we had that the same, right? Let's wrap this up here. I'm gonna grab another beer.
I just have to mention my Nashville is at number 5. We have the Nashville disagreement here.
I didn't even want it. I might even just edit that out, motherfucker. All right, end of segment 2. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to segment 3 here, talking top 11 lines for the year. I got Toronto coming in hot at number 8 here. It's a surprising pick, as it's not their first line, it's their second line I have here, only because their matchups, the way Nylander, Matthews have been training. Matthews got 73 points in 68 games last year. If he can get up to the 82 games this year, he'll probably hit at least 90 points, if not 100. Shout out to that release, if anyone's seen that release on that power play, the way he can drag that puck to another 1.5 or a foot away and just release it from there. It throws every goalie off. Probably the best release I've seen in the league for a wrist shot. Obviously, Ovi still has the best slap shot, but Matthews definitely up there for the best wrist shot. A lot would compare him to Tarasenko, but I don't think they're in the same league of his release, what he can do around the play. He's a centerman instead of a wing. He brings way more to the game. Nylander on his side there, 27 points in 54 games last year. Not the best record, but he had 61 points in the following, before the last 2 years there. And I think he's a point per game player. If he's playing with Matthews the full year, I think I have him for about 82 points this year. A big upside there. He's training hard. There's nothing wrong with his game except that it just keeps getting better and better. If he had a full year last year, I think it would be a different story. He signed that contract late in December. He started getting going mid-January, February. And by the time he started going, the year was over. So I think he's got a hot year coming up. He's got a lot to prove to the fans and everyone around him. I don't think it's any question about that. The only question I have on the line and why I have them so late in my picks is who's going to play on the wing. Is it Kapanen? He had 44 points last year. Or Johansson? He just signed that huge contract this year. He had 43 points last year in about the same game span. I think it doesn't matter who's playing on that line, I have them for 50 points. They had 144 last year. Injury concerns, I have them about 235 this year. They have a huge upside. It's going to be a fun year to watch, and I hope Marner signs. If he doesn't, it doesn't matter. Tavares is on the first line. You got, I'm pretty sure Hyman's out for the first month next year, so you might see one of the Johansson or Kapanen moving up to the first line, but regardless, one of them is going to be on that second line, and for matchup quality, I have them ranked as high as I do. They don't really have to play as that many good players. I think they're going to rack points this year, and it's going to be fun to watch, absolutely. You didn't have obviously that on your list, did you, Shelly?
Well, no, but I really like this pick because I love Austin Matthews. A lot of my hockey buddies think he's soft because he never played the junior game in Canada, doesn't understand. But I watch him closely, and this guy is like a Canadian, Northern Ontario, Northern Saskatchewan boy. He loves battling for the puck. He celebrates with his teammates like they're football players. He may be an American, but he's a good American, and I love the fact that you put him on the second line to be in this scoring top 8 at this point. I guess you got him at what, 8?
Well, for lines, yeah.
Yeah. I picked Nashville in my top 5 because for the same reason. I think these guys are motivated by the passion that I've seen in their faces when they play the game.
All right, you keep bringing up Nashville. Let's go into it. You have him at 5.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Duchesne fan. I believe he's going to take Johnson's place. I don't care what his name is. Duchesne's going to be their top 1C. And when you have Forsberg on the side as a healthy season, he's going to get huge points. Arvidsson, one of the better skaters in the league, good passer. He's everything that line needs. And I think Duchesne is a missing part for Nashville. They got the good D core. They were just always missing that top 1C center. Their other guy's been a bit inconsistent the last couple of years. You got Turris. You got a few players that are 2 or 3 Cs, but I think Duchesne is a true number 1 center. He hasn't really got that ice time yet. Last year, you started to see it in Ottawa, where he started getting that ice time, those power play points. Just getting the responsibility, and as soon as he finds his niche in Nashville, he's going to take off. It took a few games in Columbus last year after the playoffs when he got traded. Yeah, he didn't play that well in the first series, but after he started going, he was one of their best players in the playoffs. He's there to play. He's got speed. He's got everything the game's missing right now. And Nashville, especially what they're missing. And I think he's going to have a huge year. It just matters to me why I didn't have them in my top lines is the Forsberg, Arvidsson injury concern. Duchesne's good for at least 70, 75 games a year. He's going to get a point per game.
He's tough. He's a tough guy.
That's not my concern. It's more the Forsberg and Arvidsson. They missed a few games last year. I'm pretty sure Forsberg only had about 65 games last year. Same with the year before. Arvidsson was in the same boat. So, yeah, if you add 10 or 20 points more for them, I think it's huge. How many points did they have last year? You're looking over 200, so around 208. So you're not far off there. And
I think Duchesne will be motivated by what I call the Colorado factor. When players get shipped out of a place that's getting better or becoming a Stanley Cup contender. Hello, Boston, when they shipped Wheeler out and then won the cup after he was gone. It motivates the other players to try and strive to achieve what O'Reilly achieved in St. Louis. So that's one of the reasons why I have Duchesne.
Just a little chip on the shoulder, you're thinking? Yeah, the last 10 games of the playoffs last year, he was pretty nuts out there. He was probably Columbus's best player other than Panarin to watch. He was
motivated. He has a heart, and I like that.
And he's never, let's get real though, like he's had that 70-point season before in Colorado, 73 last year, but he has never played with a back end that can actually get the puck out of their end, have supporting cast. He's never played with that position where
especially in Ottawa. He must have been frustrated there.
There's way less pressure now where like he was maybe working for that contract, but even if he plays remotely close to what he did last year, he's looking at 90 points. He is a huge player that's been so undermined the whole time in his career. He's played around this surrounding cast where it's just not cutting it. And moving to Nashville, Ekholm, one of the toughest players to play against in the Central Division, started playing a bit of offense last year. Yeah, they got rid of Subban, but they got Josi and Ellis still. I think it's a huge supporting cast, and I think he's going to do great there. I don't think you're far off with the Nashville line. That might be a good call. We'll compare at the end of the year.
At the end of the year. Well, cheers. On the top 7, possibly the top 8 now that you've got Toronto up there, and I love that second line pick. Yeah. It's a 50-50 split almost, completely randomly between Bel Air and myself, Shelly the Poet's notes, and we've got it half in the East, half in the West. Some of it's central, a little heavy in the central, but it's half East, half West. That tells you there's parity in the league.
It does, but like if we're talking lines, it's even. But I have Central, Atlantic as the huge divisions this year. Carolina coming into that.
Agreed. I totally agree.
Toronto, Boston at the top. I don't know who's going to fit in the third. It's pretty unknown right now.
But as an East-West only Final Four to get to the Stanley Cup, it makes predicting what's going to happen much more difficult.
Well, let's get your prediction now.
All right,
Finals
fair enough.
Next year.
Well, that's easy. On the West side, I'm going to have Colorado for sure.
Or Dallas.
And Dallas. Or Dallas.
Yeah.
And on the other side, I can't argue with Pittsburgh or Washington.
But one of them has to win. Who would be on the other side from the Toronto, Tampa, Boston side?
You actually, you got to like Tampa Bay. Even though I don't believe what I'm seeing, I trust Stevie Yzerman. I'm not convinced Toronto has it yet. I like Kadri. It was surprising to see them run Kadri out of there, but he should be a good fit where he is. I just like the whole feel of the other division, but I know Pittsburgh very, very close, and they got Tanev now killing penalties, etc.
Huge player to pick up.
Yeah, and takes the pressure off a guy like Crosby because he's always first on the buck. I actually thought about putting Tanev on the first line just to see what it would look like, but that's impossible because they're both centermen. But I love the way that the coach in Pittsburgh coaches his team, and same with Nashville. That's one of the reasons why it's very difficult to call Colorado and Dallas. But when I saw what Dallas did last year down the stretch, I realized that when you challenge a professional athlete's manhood, his craft, his guts, they answer. So Nashville, I'm expecting big things from because much like what's going to happen in Winnipeg over the next couple of years.
They'll play good in the season, but I don't think they'll compare it to Dallas. Picking up Pavelski, having Bishop as one of their best goalies, and then you got Colorado on the other side, the upcoming team with the best line.
Got to be the Final Four right there.
Well, to agree to disagree, I got Colorado, Dallas on the other side. One of the two teams getting in on the finals. But on my other side, we have a little bit of a disagreement. You're old school, Shelly. You like the Pittsburgh. You like the Washington. You know what? I got that Toronto love. I got Toronto or Florida for the finals.
I knew you were going to say Florida.
I know, because
I love that prediction because I know how you feel about Barkov, and when you have a good player playing
the team, though,
carry a team.
They don't have the crowd for it, but I don't know. I got a good feeling about Florida this year. I'm probably reaching on that to the point where Toronto's more realistic.
Well, who wouldn't want to perform? Why wouldn't you want to live there, or in Anaheim, or San Jose, or if you can't motivate players to play there? But I really do like the way they've built Florida and Carolina, for that matter.
And the only reason I have Toronto on that side over Boston is because I think Toronto, with the whole injury thing, they signed Marner, everything goes right. I think they get more points than Boston this year in the season. So when they have home ice advantage,
it makes a difference.
The last 3 years, they couldn't get by Boston because every Game 7 would go to Boston, and they would just lose. And
you know what? I want to pull for Toronto too, even though I'm a Winnipegger and I know how this season.
We got to cheer for one Canadian team. Right?
You know what? And I'm pulling for an American. I liked Nylander when he first came into the league. I said that he was a superstar to be. But I love watching Matthews. In fact, I'm going to give him the ultimate honor.
So my
Austin
shout out
Matthews is a sorry for interrupting.
My eighth line is not far off.
It's not far off. Austin Matthews is what we call a straw dog. And you know what a straw dog is? Well, some of you old timers will understand. The straw dogs are the ones who don't run away when the bombs go off, when the going gets tough. They're the ones that roll up their sleeves and say, okay, let's deal with this. And Austin Matthews, you are a straw dog, so I'll give you that one.
Well, he's going to be more raw dogging this year, but whatever it is, he's up there. But New York, I got them at 9. I don't know how you feel about this. 221 points last year. If we were hypothetically saying Kako got drafted a couple years ago, had a season last year, I have him for 60 points this year, at least. And on a line with Panarin and Zibanejad. Panarin had 87 points in 79 games last year. Zibanejad only had 74 and 82, but his release was similar to something that I've seen in Matthews, but more of a right-handed player. His release was huge. I have no clue why Ottawa even got rid of him in the first place. I believe they traded him for Brassard. Huge mistake as a younger player. That's why you hold on to these young guys. He's breaking out. He got 74 points last year. I have him for at least a point per game. He's not a huge upside, but at least that, if not a few more points, at least 82 points. Panarin could reach 100 this year. He's going to be in the spotlight. Even if he hits his 87 last year.
He could get 100 points, Panarin. My buddy, the Godfather, loves Panarin. Thinks he's a magical player.
Yeah, he hasn't got less than like 74 points in his first 4 years. Like, he's a huge player. And Kako coming in, and I'm calling it now. New Jersey fans are going to hate me for this. He's going to get more points than Hughes this year. He got picked number 2, not because his ability. It's more the what he brings to the table, what New York is missing. Obviously, they had no choice at number 2, but New Jersey might have thought of where they are right now. They didn't need a player that can make an impact right now. They're talking about years down the road. He's 5'10", 171 pounds, Jack Hughes, and Kako's way bigger, way better in a world. What would he get in the world? Like 6 goals in the World competition last year, he was just flying around.
They're going to be a hard team to play against, actually, now that I think of it, because you got...
New York?
Yeah, because now you got Lemieux, the Lemieux kid there, you got Trouba there. Those young guys are all coming into their peak.
As if we got rid of
They're going to
Lemieux.
have a good time. Oh,
It's hard to see.
oh, losing Lemieux was as hard as losing Sherratt. Really? We're trying to convince the fans here that they want to win and they're going to allow these guys to leave. I realize there might be reasons, but as a loving hockey fan, seeing Jacob leave here was a sad day for me.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that.
Him too. He getting 50 points, probably get 60 this year. But that line though, like Kako is projected 60 points for NHL, but he'll probably get at least 65, 70. He's going to get more than he was. He's ready for the NHL. Some of those goals he got in the Worlds last year. I remember he got pushed off the puck 3 different times. He had the weirdest angle on his skate. Caught it
to
and
come
then
up with
just
the puck.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's one of those players on a wing with Zibanejad and Panarin. He's going to rack City, and that's
Like
why I have
Zuccarello.
him.
Like Zuccarello rides the check.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
211 points last year. I have him for 235 this year. Nice. That's why I have him.
I do have New York in my top 20, so that's good. Blair and I are on the same page there. After 10, it didn't matter what the order was to me.
Hey, I have him at 9. Let's go to 10. We can agree that Washington has been on both of our lists here.
Yes. I have him at number 4.
Number 4. Do you think that Ovechkin, Backstrom, or Wilson has that much upside? 203 points last year. I have them predicted for 211 points. You have them top 4. Well, you're kind of reaching here, buddy. Ovechkin.
I'm thinking Kuznetsov's playing with Ovechkin and maybe Backstrom. Maybe the coach changes things up.
Well, Kuznetsov had less points than Backstrom last year. So even if Kuznetsov moves up, yeah, the ceiling's higher. I can't disagree. Kuznetsov has been on my fantasy for a while now, only because of the upside. And he only played 76 games last year.
74, yeah.
If he could get a few more games, he might reach the 70, 80 point range. But Backstrom, yeah, his ceiling's 74. He gets 70, 80 points. It's the same. It's not going up. Kuznetsov could get up to 90 if he had a hot year. That one playoffs.
And Ovechkin's a tank, Superman.
Oh, he's played. He doesn't miss games. He played 81 last year. He's played 82,
He's
82.
Tough.
Like
he doesn't tough guys who can play.
And if you're in a league where you get penalty minutes and hits, he's a huge player. He'd be my first draft definitely this year.
Nice.
And you're not far off of the bet. It's the Wilson factor.
Yeah.
63 games, and it's not injury concern. We're talking here.
Suspensions.
People. Yes, suspensions, and he only had 40 points in the 63 games. Yeah, it's good enough, but can you rely on the refs not suspending him for even if he does a hit this year?
Oh, the
where
Bufflin,
even if
the Bufflin thing.
Yeah,
guilty just by being there.
I think he's going to be guilty as he's going to make a hit. Refs are going to. He's going to get suspended.
It depends on how the alternate captains do the ref management. We all saw what referee management can do when St. Louis won the cup because Thomas Steen's kid, Alex, did a good job of managing the referees. When you get the calls because you're a veteran who shows respect, you never know. So that's
That's different, though. We're talking a new breed here. Wilson is
he's a bit of a cement head. Yeah.
A bison. He is one of those players that doesn't belong in the league because even if it doesn't look like he's trying to hurt someone,
you believe he is,
or hit someone. No, it's not necessarily that I believe. It's the damage done when you can see that he doesn't belong in the league. He's way too big for it. To the point where even if he doesn't think he's following through or makes a big enough hit, I think the refs see the impact. The coaches, the other players, you drop gloves right away. It doesn't matter what kind of clean hit it was. If your player's going down, a big player, you're going to fight. And that's going to cause suspensions. And now with all the heat on his back, 63 games last year, a few less the year before, we're coming into this pattern where it's like, yeah, he's perfect for that line, but I don't think he has the upside to play a full 82-game season. We're at the point where Backstrom, same amount of points last year, Ovechkin, good for 90 points.
I think this year could be the difference for Wilson because when your livelihood... They were talking about our local football prodigy here
But he only has 20 more points in him. He plays a full year. 40 points last year, 63 games. He plays 82, he gets 60 points, 65.
20 or 25 points when you're in a tight race in a fantasy pool can be the difference between winning and losing.
I know, but 203 points last year, and you're adding 25 on that. That's still only 227. So that is like less than my 9th team, and you have him at 4th. So it's like, if you're doing...
Well, because I think Ovechkin is going to be there, and I think that Kuznetsov is going to be there, plus 25.
But it depends on your league. I think you're not far off with the whole putting them up there. If you have Ovechkin and Wilson and you draft them,
Ovechkin doesn't seem to get any weaker. He's like
no.
Kyle Connor. He just gets stronger every
he's
game.
bulletproof.
Yeah.
But you have the hits there. You have the penalty minutes. I think that line is one of the best lines to have, only because of hits and penalty minutes. It just depends which kind of league you're playing.
Right.
Are you playing? You're drafting these players and you're only looking at points, goals, assists. That's more the league I'm coming from, so it's more so I have them rated lower. But if you're coming from a league where maybe you have penalty minutes and hits in your league, then absolutely take Ovechkin with Wilson. You're taking Ovi at 1, 2, or 3. You take Wilson in round 4 or 5 if he gets that high. I don't think he will.
I'm thinking the power play moments. Even though Backstrom isn't on the line full time, he's going to play with Ovechkin more often than not, regardless of who else they put out there. Kuznetsov, Wilson, they have others.
Well, getting rid of Burakovsky too. He used to play on the power play a bit too. Like other players could come up. If Oshie has a healthy year, he's going to be up there too. They got depth.
They've got horses, and they also know what it takes to win the cup. And they still have a lot of them on the team, and that matters when it comes to getting the young players to buy in. That's why Pittsburgh scares me. They know what it takes to win.
Yeah. Oh, true that, man. Obviously they're both on our top 11.
Isn't it odd how 5 years ago we would be mentioning Chicago in some way, shape, or form? They've won 2-3 cups with JT, our local kid, but they're not even in the discussion right now. They might have a line in the top 21 maybe, but they're not even considered in the discussion for a contender. Yet they have players there, half of whom have won cups, more than one, have rings, know what it takes. I don't think you can count any team out, and I think veteran experience is going to count for a lot down the stretch.
I didn't have Chicago far out. Not their first line. Taves had a brilliant year last year, but coming into this year, you got to look at their second line. If Strome can play like he did last year, DeBrincat on that side with Kane, they could very well be a top 4 line. I didn't have them up there because I don't think...
They haven't been proven with Strome yet either.
No, and it's just an if and when. Why would you draft him over all these lines we're talking about where they're established? They've made a name for themselves. They're on the upcoming season where it's like you take a gamble. I'm not saying DeBrincat or Kane are you're not taking chances on them. They're brilliant players. He's taken everything from the league before and brought it into this one. DeBrincat, he's one of the best shooters, I would say, in the Central, other than Liney and maybe Sagan. And
Nice.
It's just that center position where we're thinking if maybe Taves drops down to there. I don't know. But the whole Strome thing, yeah, as soon as he came over, he had that chemistry. But can we trust him as a player that is going to put up that plus minus, going to get points, penalty minutes? Yeah, he'll get points, but he doesn't get hits, penalty minutes. It's just a far off. I don't have them in my list because it's not guaranteed. If you're putting money down on this, you want players that have proven themselves, will prove themselves this year, and to the point where you don't know Strome's upside or downside, really.
The thing about the Chicago was when I saw Brendan Schaad and Taves in the same line, I thought, ooh, boy, that actually gives me butterflies because I remember the magic they had before. Brendan Schaad is a nice hockey player.
Yeah, oh yeah. He works pretty hard out there.
Brendan.
As if they got him back there. I don't know how I feel about that trade. But Bowman knows what he's doing, though.
I think so.
Yoey Jarko, he traded that defense, high-end draft pick, for Nylander.
Yep.
The Nylander's little brother from Buffalo. And he might click on that line, too. So it's a bunch of unknowns where I don't have them in my top. But yes, obviously, Kane, DeBrincat, I'm pretty high on my other list, but not as a line.
They were close, but not in the top 10.
As a functioning line.
Yeah.
For my last pick, 11, I got Vancouver. And
I love that.
a lot of Canadians will like this pick. Americans might not like it as much, but it's not about Canadian or American teams. I look at players, I look at who's doing what, and I look at Vancouver as well. Their pickups. You voted Myers for captain this year.
Yeah, I think that was a genius move. Genius move by Vancouver. What better way to take pressure off all your young players? He's getting Myers. He's an American Canadian who loves to talk to the media. He's articulate. He was the Calder Cup winner. He can take the pressure off all the other team because he knows how to play defense. and I think his loyalty could be rewarded with a C.
Absolutely. And adding Furlan, adding some grit to that team. He was the one player I wanted Winnipeg to pick up. I was going to make a cast on them picking up Furlan. Like, at that price, at that deal, he last year I had him on my fantasy about 8 or 9 hits a game, got all these penalty minutes, and that's huge for some leagues.
Good hands for a tough player, too.
Yeah. And I don't know. Vancouver signed him for a lot less than I thought a lot of teams could sign him for. It was just a longer contract, which a lot of people weren't down for.
If I was a player, playing for Travis Green in Vancouver must be the most fun you can have, other than playing maybe in Winnipeg for Maurice, because he's a pretty cool guy. But when you have a coach like Travis Green, who's a trench warrior from the Islanders organization, loves the game, lots of respect for the pros and cons of how to play it, but also one of the guys who, because he was a journeyman player, I mean, as a kid he was a star, but when you get in the NHL, not everybody can be a superstar. He had to work at other aspects of his game, and he can impart this to these gifted players, and he's got a lot of them there. He's got a lot of them. That Bo Horvath, he's like Messier. These guys are a serious contender.
He's got surrounding cast there.
Yep.
Barchi as well. Like, there's these players that people don't even know what their names are, but just by watching, you see them come up all the time. Let alone who they picked. Let's get back to the line there. Pedersen, 5th overall, right after Makar. Colorado is depending on picking them, like Makar or him, and I don't know if they made the right or wrong choice. We'll see this year, but Pedersen is one of the best players I've seen with IQ. He's pretty small last year, but he still got his way around. I remember a few plays where he would pass the puck off the boards, dump it. It looked like he was icing it. It would go right to Besser, and Besser would score. Their chemistry is huge. Pedersen only had 71 games, 66 points. If you can get up to the 82 games, he might hit 80 or 90 points. He's probably one of the best rookies, younger players in the league. Absolutely. Playing beside Besser, you just give him the puck. 69 games, 56 points. Not that huge, but he is at least 30 goals this year. He is at least a 30-goal scorer for the next 5 years. And having him on Pedersen's line is huge. 169 points last year. Not that ideal, but I have him for 210. That's why they're sneaking in for the last. They picked up JT Miller from Tampa there.
Love that move.
Oh, how about that? 58 points 2 years ago. 47 points this year, and only because he was on a third line role. He was playing behind Tampa's top 6 and still putting up 47 points with no power play time, just 5-on-5. That's a lot to say for somebody that might get 70 points this year.
Well, this is going to be a good year for the loyal season ticket holders who paid big money to watch the Sedins, and they were fun to watch. But when the push came to shove, we all saw what happened in the crease when somebody punched the Sedin fellow right in the net. I think it was Timmy Thomas. Anyway, I'm a big fan of the Vancouver wave that's going on. I like what I see.
Well, it's just nice to see another Canadian team getting good. Like we got Winnipeg, obviously we're training for here. Yeah, if they lose, maybe Toronto on the other side, but maybe Vancouver as a 3rd seed. I don't know if Calgary has the clutchness or goaltending to get in there. So I agree. I kind of have them as a write-off.
Well, look at Vancouver. They got Oland, they got Myers, they've got Tanev on D. They got a good, solid core of D there, and if you have solid D, they can go toe-to-toe with Calgary easily, and they have the advantage in net. They have the advantage in net for sure.
Yeah. But teams just missing, like, it was hard to fit all just 11 top lines, and there's going to be a lot of controversy over this, but we had teams just missing. I didn't have any of the Edmonton lines in there because I don't know if Draisaitl is going to play with McDavid. And
that's right.
If you're actually a smart GM, Ken Holland coming in there, knowing what he's doing with the young boys, trying to make an atmosphere that players want to play in, you're not going to put those two players on the same line. You're going to spread them out because you want to slide in years down the road. You're not going to have those. If you have Malkin and Crosby on the same line, you're not winning the cup. If you have McDavid and Draisaitl on the line, same line, you're not winning playoffs. You don't have enough depth. So when you split these players up and start building your team around that, that's how you win a cup. And I think this is the first year Edmonton finally fired all their old... What's the rule? Oh, you can't fire this so-and-so because he He was on the Illuminati. They have too many old school people that have played for them in power positions, and they're starting to get out of it. Starting with Ken Holland, and I don't think McDavid and Draisaitl will be playing together because you guys start building pieces around there. They did nothing this offseason, and maybe they won't do anything for a while, but they at least have 7 years to figure it out with McDavid. So.
I agree. The one guy who I feel the most sorry for is Nugent Hopkins. I liked him when he was a rookie. I liked how hard he played. He got beat up a lot. He was a gifted player. He was thrown to the Wolves too early because they didn't have a supporting cast.
Everyone was.
Same. And they got rid of Cam Barker, one of the few defensemen
Hall was
who actually
played too early.
Oh, Taylor Hall.
Hall got put in the mix way too early.
Eberle, the whole gang. They were thrown to the Wolves. At least here in our local market, they develop the players down in the minors, so when they come up, they're ready to play. Mm-hmm. And that might be the difference down the stretch for a cup. You never know. Look what St. Louis did. Anything is possible.
Oh, absolutely. And I think splitting those two players up is huge for the contrast and building of their team. You start building around the right wing, left wing of that team. You can't really do that when they're on the same line. So once you start building your top 6 players, I think everything else will come, and that's why I have them just missing. Yeah, they're up there in my just players picks, but as a functioning line, I don't have them making my list. And a lot of people might disagree with that. I don't really care. Look at the end of the year and come back to this podcast and tell me what you think. Who else did I have missing here? Meyer, Couture, and LeBanc, whatever. Just signed this year with San Jose for another year. He only signed $1 million contract. He had 56 points, 82 games last year. And I heard on an interview he just wanted to make the team win. He wanted more money for everyone else to sign so he could win. He's a winner. Nice. Players that take less money to win hockey games, I think we need to learn from this. We have all these, Rantanen, Connor, Laine, Kachuk.
I was just going to say,
Marner.
maybe
we have all these players that need to learn from LeBanc, and learn that it's not just about the money. You want to win a cup, and I think that's why the line will be huge. He shows spirit. He showed in playoffs he can play in these clutch positions. He power play, penalty kill. He's everywhere. Couture is one of my favorite players the last 3 years. Every playoffs he seems to step up. He only had 70 points, 81 games last year. With the departure of Pavelski, he's going to get more opportunity, I think, on the penalty kill and power play. He could be up to 80 points this year. And the wild card is Meyer. He's been on my draft for the last 3 years. He only had 66 points in 78 games last year, but he is going to get about 85 points this year, if not more. He is one of the best players from that 2015 draft. It keeps going back to that. 9th overall, Rantanen went right after him, and that line, 192 points last year. I think they'll get just over 200 this year, and that being a huge part of Meyer, LeBanc, and obviously Couture bringing to the table what he does. And I have them just missing. Sorry for you San Jose fans, but they didn't make my cut this year, but we'll see what happens with that.
One of the other ones that didn't make the cut would have been
from your
Pacioretty, Stone, or Stastny.
Oh yeah.
And the other 2 groups that didn't get put in the top 10.
No, let's go back to that line, because I did have them just missing, and it wasn't more of a functioning line. I had an injury concern. Stastny only 50 games last year. Pacioretty only 66 games last year, and Stone being one of the best 2-ways. He's what holds that line together. 73 points last year doesn't really justify how much defense he's played. How many he had the second or first most takeaways last year.
Yep.
And usually that only goes to center players. So him as a wing getting that, he's a huge asset to the team. But Stastny's getting a little older. He played 50 games last year. Maybe he might get to 70 this year, even 82. But it doesn't justify in that line. They got 155 points last year. Maybe they'll get 175 if they're healthy for a few games. But obviously the second line matchup has a huge indication of why they're putting up these points. They don't really have as much competition as their first line. So you're not far off there, but I didn't have them making just because I don't even have them at 200 points.
Well, the other 2 who were within striking distance and close, we discussed this before we went to air. One of them was Nyquist, Dubois, Atkinson in Columbus, but the other one that I think about the whole NHL, and since the expansion from 67 from 6 to 12 teams, there's only one marketplace since post-expansion, and we're talking original 6, Chicago, Detroit, New York, Boston, Montreal, who's the sixth one? Anyway, the original 6 expanding to 12. The only marketplace that hasn't won a cup now, when they went to 12 teams, is the Minnesota-Minneapolis market. So
Dude,
I kind of
we're
like.
not talking
So I
about
like.
Minnesota.
So
No,
I like.
We're dropping
Zucker.
this now. No. Minnesota will not make this podcast. I'm gonna cut you off there. I'm sorry, man. I let you have it with the one before there, the Columbus.
The Columbus one. I thought I could sneak in the
Huge
Minnesota.
Dubois fan. Atkinson's good, and obviously the Nyquist. But no, that's where we're gonna end this podcast. Blair on the air.
Shelly
End
the
of
poet.
segment 3. Thanks for listening there, crew. Have a good one. Cheers.